Unlocking the Science of Change. Welcome to this comprehensive summary of The Power of Habit: Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. As you listen, prepare to discover not only how habits are formed and maintained, but also how they can be intentionally changed for both personal transformation and organizational success. This narration synthesizes key findings, gripping stories, and actionable frameworks backed by the latest neuroscience and real world applications. By the end, you'll understand why habits matter, how the habit loop governs much of our behavior, and what it takes to rewrite the scripts that shape our lives. Setting the stage: the power and prevalence of habits. Habits are just mindless routines. They are the undercurrent guiding up to 40% of our daily actions. Habits dictate when we brush our teeth, how we commute to work, and, sometimes, how we react under stress. Duhigg opens the book with a powerful assertion: change your habits, and you can change your life, your business, and even your community. This idea is illustrated through stories like Lisa Allen, who reshaped her life amid adversity, and organizations such as Starbucks and Alcoa, which revolutionized their cultures through targeted habit changes. Habits, Duhigg argues, are not fate, they are anchor points for transformation. The neuroscience of habit formation, the brain's habit blueprint. To understand habits, we begin in the brain. When a behavior is repeated, it moves from conscious deliberation to subconscious execution, governed largely by an area called the basal ganglia, the brain's habit center. This efficiency mechanism allows us to focus our conscious attention elsewhere while routines operate on autopilot. Neuroscience shows that as a pattern becomes a habit, the brain activity shifts. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for novel decision-making, quiets while the basal ganglia fires up. Once embedded, even if a habit is dormant, the neurological circuits remain, making old habits hard to erase, but possible to override. The core mechanism, the habit loop. Enter the habit loop, a three-step neurological pattern at the heart of every habit. These are its components. Cue, the trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode. Routine, the behavior itself, physical, emotional, or mental. Reward, the benefit that helps your brain determine if this loop is worth remembering. As Duhigg explains, habits emerge when the brain craves the reward in response to a cue and executes the routine automatically. Over time, the craving becomes deeply associated with the cue, making the cycle self-sustaining. Deep dive, the habit loop in action. Let's anchor this with a vivid example: the habit of eating a cookie daily at work. You notice you're restless mid-afternoon. Cue. You head to the cafeteria, buy a cookie, and chat with friends. Routine. You feel better, satisfied and socialized. Reward. Over days, your brain links the time of day cue with the cookie and the ensuing pleasure, making the routine merely automatic. Interestingly, the reward can be more about social contact or a break than the cookie itself. This framework illuminates habits in everything, from exercise to smoking and organizational routines. The loop holds tight, but crucially, it can be hacked. The golden rule of habit change: disrupting the routine, not the cue or reward. One of the book's most powerful principles is the golden rule of habit change. You can't eliminate a habit, but you can change it by keeping the cue and reward and swapping the routine. This concept is pivotal for lasting change. For instance, if someone wants to stop smoking, routine; when stressed, cue because it relieves anxiety, reward. They should seek a healthier routine that delivers the same relief, like deep breathing or a quick walk during stressful moments. Duhigg spotlights Alcoholics Anonymous as a real-world application. A focuses on identifying triggers and rewards of drinking, then helps members substitute a supportive conversation routine instead. Over time, the new loop becomes as automatic as the old one, underpinned by belief in change and community support. Why true transformation requires more than willpower. Duhigg underscores that while willpower is vital, change more often succeeds when rooted in structure. Relying solely on willpower to override a well-established habit often leads to failure, especially when under stress or distraction. Instead, embedding the desired behavior into the habit loop drastically improves the odds of adoption and maintenance. Keystone habits, the surprising leverage points. Keystone habits, small changes, big impact. Not all habits carry equal weight. Keystone habits are patterns with ripple effects throughout other behaviors. These habits create a chain reaction, reshaping related routines and often serving as catalysts for broader personal or organizational transformation. For example, Duhigg shares the story of Paul O'Neill and Alcoa. Upon taking the helm as CEO, O'Neill shocked investors and employees by making worker safety, not profit, Alcoa's top priority. By obsessively focusing on this keystone habit, Alcoa transformed processes, communication, and culture, which ultimately led to record profits. Improving safety required transparency, accountability, and empowerment, which naturally spilled over to other facets of the business. Keystone habits in everyday life. For individuals, keystone habits might include regular exercise, meal planning, or consistent family dinners. These habits don't just improve the targeted area, they foster discipline, elevate mood, and often spark positive changes in unrelated behaviors, such as productivity or budgeting. Personal transformation through habit change. Narratives of change. Lisa Allen's reinvention. Throughout the book, Duhigg grounds his analysis in compelling personal stories. One standout is Lisa Allen, a woman who transformed her entire life by first breaking her smoking habit. Her journey began not with raw willpower, but with a clear understanding of her habit's cues, routines, and rewards. She leveraged the habit loop, replacing cigarettes with running, which provided a similar sense of accomplishment and stress relief. As Lisa tackled one keystone habit, other positive changes followed. She lost weight, improved her finances, and rebuilt her relationships. This cascade illustrates Duhigg's argument that targeting a single keystone habit often triggers a domino effect of transformation, validating the interdisciplinary findings from psychology and behavioral economics. The role of willpower, science, success, and the marshmallow test. Willpower as a muscle. Willpower, Duhigg writes, behaves much like a muscle. It can be strengthened with practice, but is also susceptible to exhaustion. The concept, backed by research in psychology and neuroscience, implies that organized, habitual training of willpower is more effective than relying on motivation alone. In practice, individuals and organizations that integrate willpower training into daily routines, making it part of a habit loop, find it easier to persist in the face of challenges. The marshmallow test, a lesson in self-control. Duhigg delves into the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, in which children were offered one marshmallow immediately or two if they waited. The results showed that those with the discipline to delay gratification had greater long-term success. However, contrary to popular belief, Duhigg's analysis reveals willpower isn't fixed at birth. Instead, it is a learnable skill reinforced by deliberate routines and environmental cues. The lesson for listeners is clear. Build willpower by embedding pause moments into routines and celebrating small rewards, rather than treating impulses as character flaws or fixed traits. Organizational habits. The hidden forces of company culture. The power of organizational routines. Organizations operate on habits just as individuals do, but these routines are often invisible, yet powerful forces shaping outcomes. Duhigg demonstrates how company-wide patterns, like standardized meeting structures or safety protocols, define how things are done around here, driving results, resilience, or dysfunction. A vivid business case is Starbucks. Confronting customer service lapses, the company realized that successful employees didn't simply have better personalities. They had deeply ingrained habitual responses to difficult situations. To address this, Starbucks incorporated scripted customer service routines and if-then planning into employee training, turning thoughtful responses into reflexive behaviors. Alcoa and transformation through habits. When Paul O'Neill took the reins at Alcoa, his singular focus on workplace safety as a keystone habit revolutionized manufacturing processes, communication, and ultimately profits. Employees began to report near misses, share suggestions, and take personal responsibility, knowing safety was non-negotiable. Habits, not just orders or slogans, were the engine of change. This underscores the broader implication. To change organizational performance, leaders must focus not only on structures and incentives, but on the subtle, shared habits that drive day-to-day actions. Habit change case studies, from individual to societal scale. Example, the power of the small win. Charles Duhigg profiles individuals who orchestrate remarkable personal change one habit at a time, whether quitting smoking or training for a marathon. The most successful subjects identify cues, such as time of day or emotional states, consciously design alternative routines, and reward themselves for success. These examples highlight the power of small wins, small changes supporting confidence and greater achievements over time. Organizational example, Starbucks habitual success. Starbucks transformed customer service, not by hiring better staff, but by creating if-then scripts. If a customer is angry, then employees follow a routine of active listening and personalized solutions. Over time, these scripts became habitual, allowing employees to respond calmly and consistently even under pressure. The success of Starbucks' training program became a blueprint for industry-wide adoption of behavioral habits in corporate culture. Societal example, transforming social movements. The Montgomery bus boycott, led by Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., is another case Duhigg analyzes. The movement succeeded not just because of ethical leadership, but also because the community leveraged existing social habits, regular church attendance, community organizing routines, and rituals of protest. By aligning with ingrained habits, the movement scaled from individual outrage to collective action, changing habits, a practical framework. The 4 essential steps. Duhigg provides a roadmap for listeners ready to transform their own habits. The process typically unfolds in 4 steps. Identify the routine. What is the habitual behavior you want to change? Experiment with rewards. Test different rewards to pinpoint what truly drives your behavior. Isolate the cue. Discover the specific trigger for the habit. Develop a plan. Design a new routine that responds to the cue and delivers the desired reward. By following this method, countless people and organizations have achieved sustained habit change. The cue routine reward table. Cue, trigger that starts the routine. Feeling restless at 3 p.m. Routine, behavior performed automatically. Go to cafeteria, buy cookie. Reward, benefit, craving satisfied, socializing and sugar boost. Substitute routine, new behavior to replace the old, must give a similar reward. Take short walk, chat with friend. This table encapsulates the fundamental technique for transforming habits, emphasizing the substitution of the routine while keeping cues and rewards constant. New behavior to replace the old, must give a similar reward. The process demands persistent experimentation and patience. Listeners seeking success in habit change should begin by keenly observing their own patterns, jotting down cues and rewards, and then systematically testing new routines. Consistency and honest self-reflection are key. Habit change in business. Starbucks, building willpower into a system. When Starbucks confronted high employee turnover and poor service, executives looked beyond hiring practices to the habits governing employee reactions. By teaching baristas to use specific routines for high-stress scenarios, like the latte method, listen, acknowledge, take action, thank, explain. Starbucks turned high-pressure moments into showcases of customer delight. This transformation, rooted in habitual response rather than raw willpower, boosted sales and customer loyalty. Alcoa, safety as the ultimate keystone habit. Returning to Alcoa, the company's transformation under Paul O'Neill exemplifies the power of a single, well-chosen keystone habit. By elevating safety protocols to the cornerstone of culture, Alcoa's workers became more engaged, innovative, and accountable. The improved safety statistics, in turn, lifted profitability and reputation, proving the business payoffs of habit-driven change. Organizational habits and culture. How groups change. Duhigg explains that cultures, whether in companies or communities, are at their core a collection of habits. To overhaul a culture, leaders must focus on shifting the habitual routines that define daily operations. This could mean reimagining meeting structures, communication standards, or even lunch break routines. He illustrates this using examples from football coach Tony Dungy, who rebuilt teams by drilling neural pathways until new behaviors became instinctive, not just theoretical. In practical terms, enduring cultural reform depends less on slogans and more on reshaping routines that embed new values in daily life. Key insights. The habit loop's universality. Cues, routines, and rewards underpin virtually every behavior. Change relies on routine substitution. Cues and rewards are sticky. The routine is the lever. Keystone habits have disproportionate effects. Focus on these first. Willpower as a skill. It can be learned through habit, not just innate discipline. Organizational change mirrors personal change. Both require diagnosis of existing loops and intentional design of new ones. These sources collectively reinforce Duhigg's blend of neuroscience, case study, and practical framework, confirming the book's broad and lasting influence. A few standout quotes sum up the essence of Duhigg's message. Change might not be fast, and it isn't always easy, but with time and effort, almost any habit can be reshaped. The golden rule of habit change: you can't extinguish a bad habit, you can only change it. Keystone habits say that success doesn't depend on getting every single thing right, but instead relies on identifying a few key priorities and fashioning them into powerful levers. Conclusion. The power of habit reveals that habits are not destiny, they are decisions tucked inside neurological loops, awaiting conscious reshaping. From the intimate details of individual lives to the broad structures of organizations and social movements, Charles Duhigg's book is a call to action. Identify your keystone habits. Experiment with your routines. Elevate your willpower by embedding it in daily life. Every great change, Duhigg shows, begins not with grand plans, but with the seemingly trivial moments that, repeated, become our fate. Before we close, here are concrete steps drawn from Duhigg's research and the world's best habit coaches to help you apply these lessons. Start small. Pick one habit loop and change only the routine. Be observant. Write down cues and rewards immediately after a habit occurs. Leverage Keystone habits. Choose changes that might spark broader improvement. Trust in patience and persistence. Habit change feels unnatural at first, until suddenly it doesn't. Remember, the journey from automaticity to intentional action is the heart of growth. Final reflection. Whether you're seeking better health, higher productivity, or an improved culture within your team or company, your tool is not just willpower, but the strategic science of habit. As Duhigg writes, the difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do. So start with one small loop. Change the routine. The rest is habit. That was Talking Better, where wisdom speaks and you evolve. If this summary helped you think differently, follow the channel and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Keep listening, keep evolving, and keep talking better.